Good morning all and welcome to the Standing Committee meeting for Communities for Wednesday the 11th of May. I'd now like to open the meeting with the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen. Okay, we do have a leave of absence request from Councillor Henshin, who's unable to make it due to the weather conditions. Do we have a mover for such? Councillor Duff, seconded Councillor Potter. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Councillor Duff, would you please provide the recognition of traditional owners? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to acknowledge country and the land where we meet this morning, the Waka Waka land, and acknowledge the elders both past, present and emerging. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Item 4, declaration of conflicts of interest. In relation to today's agenda, councillors. Councillor Shoemaker.
I just wanted to raise, Mr Mayor, in relation to item 12.3 in the confidential section around the management of Blackbutt and Proston swimming pools. My sister-in-law actually works for a company at the Blackbutt swimming pool during swimming season, so I just wanted to make that noted. And as she's my business partner, I'm actually happy to leave the room for that one.
Duly noted. Thank you, Councillor. Anything further? Okay, we'll move on to item 5.1, minutes of the Standing Committee meeting held on the 13th of April 2022. That's at 6 on the agenda, where it's recommended that the minutes of the Community Standing Committee meeting held 13 April 2022 be received. Do we have a mover? Councillor Jones, seconded Councillor Duff. Any speakers? To the vote, those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 6.1, notice of motion Tingura Rail Trail Verge at 31. I would now like to present the motion to the committee that the committee recommend to council that council engage contractors within this financial year to complete the slashing, mowing and clearing of the verge area of the rail trail on the northern side within a 60-kilometre zone at Tingura, and the council parks and garden staff then take on the project for selecting and planting an appropriate landscape of trees as part of a natural beautification project. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Jones, thank you. Okay, look, in terms of speaking to it, I'll probably just refer to the rationale, which really says everything that I think I'd want to say. This area on the side of the road within the 60k zone lends itself beautifully to creating a scenic natural verge, encompassing a sprinkling of trees and providing a nice view of the rail trail to drivers and tourists. It is something that Parks and Gardens management have suggested previously. In fact, I think we've discussed it previously, as a project that their team would like to be part of in establishing and maintaining. The small area that our staff have been mowing looks great and is an example of the opportunity here. The cost to clear the area ready for staff to plant should not be excessive and would give the small village of Tingura a real lift. Further to that, I'd probably just say that it does look quite overgrown and untidy at the moment. And there's a small section there where the staff have been mowing around some of the trees, and it just looks absolutely beautiful. I think it'd be nice if we could finish that off. It would require some slashing and some clearing of some of the old dead trees or the trees that aren't suitable. It may well be that there's enough natural vegetation left, enough trees left, based on what's there. I had a look yesterday, that we may not even need to plant any further trees, but that'd be a matter for our horticultural staff with our manager, I think, to make that call as to what they feel is appropriate. I think it's too big of a job to ask our staff to do. They've got too much on their plate at the moment, and I would suggest that it's probably a job for contractors, weather allowing, over the next couple of months. So anyway, I'll put that forward. Further speakers. Councillor Shoemaker.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. I think it's a wonderful project and initiative. I'm fully supportive of the concept and the idea, because I think driving into our towns, the way they look is really important. But I do have some questions just in terms of the logistics. Like, we don't actually have a budget item for this, and I'm mindful of the increase in operational budget just for the maintenance of it. And I'm probably more sort of, I had a look thinking about the actual, the amount of land that we're going to clear from an ongoing point of view, just how that impacts on our current resources in maintaining that. I guess these are a couple of my questions, General Manager O'May, just in terms of growing that footprint from a maintenance point of view, a scheduling point of view, and a budget point of view. Do we need to do some more work on this project? I'm thinking just to make sure that we've actually got the resources to see it done properly.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, so we do. The guys have looked at this area, and as the Mayor pointed out, we're looking at. So we do mow an area there. So it's really just an extension of the area that we are looking at. We don't picture that it'll be a big, like it's probably an extra 15 minutes of slashing at the time when they're on site there, because it joins into the thing. So we don't see it'll be a big ongoing cost. We would probably look at. The guys have been trying to eke out a little bit of as they go, but it's really probably been a bit of a time getting back to do the clearing. So I think, as the Mayor suggested, that if we did get a contractor or someone in and could do it all at once, you could get it tidied up, and then you're just going through and maintaining it. So I picture we would probably try to jump into this this financial year, at the end of this financial year. We've just probably reviewing our current budget with the number of vacancies and that, so we'd be trying to fit it just within our current resources rather than having a budget impact. Going forward, we'd certainly like, as the Mayor suggested with the trees, we'd look at probably working with the Tingura community. It'd be good to actually get some, like I know there's a group sort of up there that are looking for projects probably that they can do in the town, so if we could get some assistance, it's more if we're establishing trees, add ongoing watering and that, so if we'd work in partnership with the community, if we were planting trees to get at least help with that, then we think it could be a good little project.
Yeah, thank you for the clarification. I think based on the fact that there's no current implications to our budget, and there is an opportunity to work with the Tingura community into the future around those trees, I'm fully supportive. I think it's a wonderful project for Tingura. So thank you for bringing it to the table.
Further speakers? Councillor Jones.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I haven't been up there to have a look at it myself since you've put the notice up. I just want clarification. The area on the side of the road within the 60k zone, so is it actually on the side of the road, the highway that you're speaking, or are you actually along the rail trail? Like,
It's the road reserve that adjoins the rail trail area. So it would be from the edge of town through to where the cutting commences. It wouldn't be possible to slash the cutting because of the slope of the land, but it's to the base of the cutting, which is on the road reserve. But I think, Pete, probably a fair bit of it's on the rail trail, is it?
Yeah, I think through you, Mr. Mayor, I think there'll be a fair proportion of it is actually within the rail trail corridor. So yeah, just haven't got the area mapped out or anything at the moment. Yeah.
you're encompassing the rail trail end. So, yeah, okay, yep, sweet, fine.
Further speakers? No? Okay, we'll go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 7.1, I'd now like to invite Councillor Potter to present the Community Arts, Heritage, Sport and Recreation Portfolio Report, and that's at page 33.
Thank you, Mayor. The Honourable David Littleproud, Minister for Agriculture and Northern Australia and Member for Marinara, announced a $3.4 million for a local head-to-health service in Kingaroy. With the South Bennett psychological distress and suicide rates being well above the Queensland state's average, this funding will be so important to address some of the significant mental health challenges in our region. The Darling Downs and West Moreton PHN will receive the funding over 4 years from May. Thank you, Peter. We'll receive the funding from May 22 and will continue to work with representatives from the South Bennett Regional Council, hospital, general practice, allied health and our community to co-design a head to health. Sorry, I'm just changing from my computer to the paperwork. So to co-design a head to health centre that is unique to the South Bennett. The establishment of a local head to health centre will provide a strong foundation of mental health services moving forward. The South Bennett Regional Council 2-day Youth Leadership Conference. Our newly appointed South Bennett Regional Youth Council convened on the 7th and 8th of May, just the weekend been, for a 2-day leadership conference facilitated by Youth Leadership Academy Australia. The Youth Leadership Academy Australia is a for-youth organisation created with the aim of empowering youth to use their voice and create a positive change in their communities. The topics for the conference included leading our community, the power of teamwork, setting and achieving goals, flexibility and adapting to change. Parents and caregivers were also invited to watch on the Friday to see what they had developed over the weekend. And I've got to add on this particular note, I was there for most of that weekend. These guys were just incredible. They walked in on the Saturday morning, they didn't talk to anyone, didn't know anyone, and by the end of that weekend, they all knew each other really well. And yesterday's youth council meeting was the first one where they all came in and they all talked to each other instead of just sitting there in silence. So to build that connection and the bond between all of the South Bennett Regional Youth Council members was just incredible. And to see that happen and watch them grow. Library. First five ever expenditure for the 21-22. To meet the expenditure requirements of the State Library of Queensland First Five Ever initiative, the library has recently purchased a variety of resources that will add great value to the programs delivered by the service. In addition to the annual allocation of the 21,650, there is also a rollover of 5,633 to be spent from last financial year. To add an element of technology for the first five ever sessions, a set of B-bots were purchased, and these cute little floor robots support the exploration of early computing and programming. With a simple child-friendly layout, it's a perfect starting point for teaching control, sequencing, directional language and algorithms. Other smaller ticket items were also acquired for use in the library during the Kingaroy Library stay and play sessions. Building blocks, puzzles and other free play resources were purchased to encourage exploration and interaction between the children in attendance. Stay and Play is the newest first five ever program to be introduced at South Bennett Libraries, and its aim is to provide a relaxed and welcoming playgroup feel for local families. National Simultaneous Storytime is held annually by the Australian Library and Information Association. Every year, a picture book written and illustrated by an Australian author and illustrator is read simultaneously in libraries, preschools, schools, childcare centres, family homes, bookshops and many other places around the country. This year's book is Family Tree, written by Josh Pike and illustrated by Rona Joy Josh. The National Simultaneous Storytime will take place on Wednesday, the 25th of May at 11 a.m, and South Bennett Libraries will be joining in on the fun by reading this title along with millions of other Australians. A class from St Patrick's School will be visiting the Nanango Library for this event to add to the National Simultaneous Storytime fun. Aged care information sessions. The South Bennett Libraries, along with representatives from Lutheran Services, will be hosting aged care information mornings in an informal setting for any questions that community members may have. From support required to allow the elderly to continue to live in their own homes independently, to carer support to assist with loved ones. These sessions will aid with how to move forward in each of these circumstances. The Blackbutt, Kingaroy, Mergen, Nanango, Proston, Wondai Libraries will each host a morning tea throughout late May and into the first week of June for these sessions. Bookings for these events can be made by contacting the South Bennett Libraries on 41 899 256. The first five ever at the Proston Library with Community Health. So during the month of May, the Proston Library will be running a weekly information session in partnership with Community Health. Guest speakers will include representatives from Bush Kids, the Queensland Ambulance and Queensland Health, along with a library staff member who will speak about First Five Forever and its benefits. It is hoped that these sessions, which will be held each Thursday morning from 9:30 a.m, will help promote the First Five Forever programming in the Proston community, whilst educating locals on other aspects of their childcare and development. Sport and Rec. Ashgrove Rangers Athletics Club held a very successful relay teams event along the South Bennett section of the KKRT, from the Kingaroy to Wondai and back. The course was approximately 60 kilometres, averaging about 5 kilometres for each leg of the relay. This event was held for the first time in October, where the club had around 8 teams and 60 runners in total. This year saw an increase in teams with approximately 150 runners. The rail trail is a perfect venue for this. The scenery is also a real draw card. This event is building up to one of the must-do races in the Queensland calendar. Whilst there is a competitive angle to the race, there is also a social side. The club also says holding the event on the May long weekend provides a great opportunity for visitors to spend a little bit of extra time in the region and explore our many attractions. We did receive a letter from the Athletics Club saying how wonderful it was, and thank you very much to the South Bennett Regional Council for all the help they provided in making this happen for them, and they're looking forward and starting planning for next year, for their next one already, which is wonderful. Rugby league legend Jonathan Thurston will be coming to the South Bennett this month to have a big conversation with school children with the aim of instilling them with confidence, courage and self-belief. Jonathan will also be at the Kingaroy Town Hall forecourt from 4 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. on Tuesday the 24th of May for everyone else to meet. This is a unique opportunity for residents of the South Bennett to meet a great Queenslander and hear his first-hand story of his messages of looking out for each other. Residents can catch free buses from across the South Bennett to attend, but bookings are essential. The Kingaroy Junior Cricket practice nets and fencing has now been completed, but not before a few hiccups. And I would like to thank the Kingaroy Junior Cricket Committee and council staff for working together to finding solutions with these issues and to ensure this project was completed on time and within budget. These new additions have really lifted the presence of the River Road Park open space, which can now be used by all and enjoyed by all. The Active Game Day funding successful recipients were announced this week, with 2 of our 3 local sporting community groups that applied were awarding funding to undertake their projects. And it's very exciting to say that the Nango Show Society, with installation of new lighting around their main arena, got $83,943, and the Wando Wolves Junior Rugby League to upgrade their lighting to the 100 LUX got $125,120. And this is fantastic news for these clubs, which will certainly enhance these complexes. On a disappointing note, the council was unsuccessful with our application for the Come and Try Day under the Sporting Australia grant participation. I'd really love to finish on a positive note there, so I would just like to reiterate again about how wonderful the Youth Council was, and our meeting yesterday was such a progressive meeting as opposed to any of the others we've held, and I look forward to the Youth Council presenting to our council one day soon with some of their plans and ideas. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Jones. Speakers? Councillor Shoemaker.
My goodness, Councillor Potter, what a wonderful report. There is certainly some really incredible things happening across our region, and I just wanted to acknowledge the work of, I guess, our team in making these things happen. I think we're all very excited about Jonathan Thurston coming next week. I think there's much to learn there, and certainly your efforts with the Youth Council, the Leadership Conference, well done, congratulations. Thank you to all of those young people who have actually had the courage to step up and enable their voices to be heard and share their ideas and their insights. I think there's so much that this council can learn from those young people really value their time and their contributions to that council. Thank you so much. I'm disappointed that National Simultaneous Storytime will be at the same time as our general council meeting. Would have loved to have been involved in that. And really great to hear about those aged care information sessions. That's a real challenge for people across our region, and certainly as we continue talking about the complexities of housing and the challenges that spread across our community in terms of fixing or solving that problem, I think any information we can provide that helps people sort of identify the best care and their best options into the future is really wonderful. So thank you for your report and all of the efforts of our incredible team. And I guess in closing, I'm really excited about the Show Society and the Wandai Wolves getting that funding for the lighting projects. That really will make an enormous difference. So thank you for the report.
Further speakers? To the vote, those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 7.2, Local Recovery and Resilience Grant funding is at 40. Okay. Mr. CEO, who would like to give us an introduction on this one? General Manager, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, so this is a QRA disaster funding program which we've been included in. So this is in response to the impacts of the recent flooding events across the summer. We had the 3 impacts. So this is a recovery and resilience. So we've been, each of the impacted councils has been a maximum of $1 million. So we've been have funding for $1 million for recovery and resilience activities. It's over a 2-year funding period. So looking at activities that facilitate community recovery, looking at and also activities that will assist with our resilience to future events. We've got until I think March 2023 is for the finalised project plan. So there is a bit of time to put projects together. I think I did have in the report that I see 2 sides to this funding. So there is actually the recovery projects, which will be potential more operational projects, having officers on the ground. But we can also do some infrastructure work. So things we've identified is the signage, so like getting dedicated disaster management signs. So from an infrastructure work, getting trailers and signs that are ready to go in the event of a disaster. We also talked about some of our drop-down signs, whether we can put additional lighting or something on those so they can stand out a bit more when they are dropped down, so we don't get situations we had recently where the truck went past the sign even though it was dropped down, so it was closed and that sort of thing. So a couple of projects around that. The recovery projects do see that if we could engage an officer for an 18-month period, basically to coordinate this project, delivery of the projects, but just put together a recovery plan, put together kits, work with all of the community groups on building their resilience. Projects like we did with the drought stuff, the 10 minutes with the master and the producer ones that we are doing. Certainly a lot of, if there is mental health programs that we can support, sort of particularly whether it be through the youth or primary producers, local businesses. So yeah, endless list of projects. I'll probably picture if we get that recovery officer started, we'd probably try to do a survey, do some benchmarking at the front of the project so that we can actually target the program to sort of identified needs. So and even so we could actually at the end of it say, well, this is what we identified at the start, our current situation, and hopefully get some get to, at the end, see what we have achieved, and I certainly think it'll help us be in a better place when we do have future events. Just getting some dedicated resources, particularly in that recovery space. I've mentioned a couple of in the infrastructure ones. We've flagged the rail trail repairs and Dingo Creek car park, and that was potentially they could be funded under here, but we do see that there is additional funding that will likely pick these up. So we weren't actually looking at allocating this straight away to those sort of projects. Have been in discussions with TMR, and we have another meeting tomorrow. It looks like we have got funding to get that initial work done to get the rail trail right through to Kilkeevan opened up again, even though we were sort of looking at, council was looking at contributing to that. And then we're just getting together the cost for the permanent repairs. We've got the Dingo Creek car park costs there, but there is another, QRA have released another bucket of funding similar to, well, not similar to this, but which we think will address those repairs. So that's why in the report you'll see that I have indicated if alternate funding couldn't be sourced, then we could potentially use this for the for those things. So yeah, that's probably just a brief overview and my thoughts. So yeah, we probably weren't looking at sort of allocating it straight away. We really need to have some good thoughts so we can get best bang for our buck for the $1 million. But we do see it important to get someone working on it at least and putting a program together.
Thank you, General Manager May. Let's have a discussion around this. Councillor Duff.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. And I think it's exciting that we've got that opportunity to utilise that $1 million. I'm hoping that we, as you suggested, that we can use that rail trail and Dingo Park money out of another bucket. Just wanted to suggest weed control, the actual on-the-ground spraying of the Parthenium, if we could include that maybe as a project, whether it's a long-term strategy or whether it's actually, I'd prefer it if we could actually do the spraying of the Parthenium in that funding. I don't know if it fits the guidelines, but also I agree with having the resilience, like a recovery officer, to actually roll out some projects, but it'd be good to have some people on the ground actually working with the farmers with mental health issues, to actually on the ground doing that. And the other one is the crop mapping. I know that Alan Broome was really keen to get some mapping of our region with our agricultural sectors, because it's a gap every time that we have floods. We don't actually know what we've lost because there's no particular ag groups that can collect that data. So he was always keen to get that to happen. So whether we could have some sort of a compilation of like a mapping project and data compilation. So they're just some ideas I had. Thank you.
Councillor Potter.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Actually, correct me if I'm wrong, but I was under the understanding that the mapping was done with our last lot of drought recovery funding that we got. So no, well, we gave that to Baito because I thought that was one of the things that Baito were doing in amongst that, because I know he was collecting information with regards to that. So maybe we probably need some information back on that money that we gave to Baito with our last sort of drought funding money, to understand exactly what that money was used for and what we got back to council from that, because I'd really love to understand how that was spent and resourced through Baito. Look, but for starters, what you've done here is fantastic, and I actually look forward to these events. And I personally agree with Councillor Duff that having a specific resilience and recovery officer, even if it is only for 18 months, will be extremely beneficial to the South Bennett Regional Council and the whole of the South Bennett.
Further speakers. Councillor Schumacher.
Through you, Mr Mayor, I might just respond to a couple of those questions. So yeah, so
Sorry,
just,
General Manager. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah,
Thank
yeah,
you.
right, Mr. Just on the Parthenium spraying, we do expect, and QRA are putting together an environmental package, so we do expect that the Parthenium and that environmental will fit in under that package. So that's where we haven't identified it for this. We do expect that there is a further package that's in Treasury at the moment that will be definitely targeting that. And the Baito, so they put together an adverse event plan, and so we can come. So it wasn't specific down to mapping what Councillor Duff is talking about, mapping those properties and trying to determine the economic value so that we can quickly identify the loss during an event. So so they're the sort of projects that they just need fleshing out and scoping a bit more, so we can actually include in here, because I think if we go down those type of projects, we need to be fairly clear on the deliverables and what we're trying to achieve. So yeah, definitely something we could include in here.
Councillor Shoemaker.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the report and the commentary. I think this is a really rare and wonderful opportunity to really invest in some meaningful outcomes in our region. I have a few ideas. Like, I know we've pulled some here based on other programs and things that we've done. I'm a big believer that we just don't know what we don't know. And with an opportunity like this spread across our for those that have been impacted directly, and then the ongoing impacts of that in our region, I was actually thinking, like, would it be possible to pull together a bit of a think tank or like a working group, and everybody could bring their ideas to the table so that that could feed into that project plan? Because I'm thinking about some of the conversations I've had with people like Alan Broome, and certainly the disaster resilience and recovery work that people like Hannah Lou and Sarah Martin do. And I think we have to be careful that we're not doubling up on things that other government departments or agencies are already delivering. We're just kind of enabling or supporting. And I think there are some really wonderful ideas here. And I guess I'd just like to see us think a little bit further afield too when it comes to the impact of these disasters. For instance, some of our smaller schools in the footprint of the area, how could we engage with some of those younger people who, you know, are going home to families that have had been faced with challenges like these? Simple things like breakfast clubs, or where we're bringing people together, can be really beneficial, and probably just understanding what some of these groups have, which I think your resilience officer would be really well placed to do. But I guess I'm thinking it's a great opportunity. Is there a way we could host some sort of think tank, Peter, where we could invite the members of our social and economic recovery group, and maybe a few members from the community who could feed in, who've actually been impacted or may have some ideas themselves as to how we could really influence some change? What are your thoughts around that, General Manager O'May?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I definitely agree, and that's where I was talking about. We need to do a survey, so I think that's just an extension. We just need to do some groundwork at the start to make sure our programs are targeted to a need, rather than just rolling out what we think is needed. So, yeah, definitely, the more heads we can get together, the more input we can get to, the more targeted that the spend will be. So, yeah, that's what I do see. And if you've got someone sort of pulling that together, we're already talking to Hannah and Sarah and Cindy and all of the other agencies about ideas. So I think we need to put them all together, because we can quickly rack up a $2 million program. So we just need to make sure we put everything in the mix, and then we can target it. So that's why, and it is good that they're looking for, probably separate to some other funding programs, they'll tell you you've got the money and we want a project plan within 28 days or something, and where this time there is time to actually roll it. You can still roll out things, but if we change and introduce new programs down the track, we have got a little bit of time to do that. So yeah, I agree. If we can put together and the recovery group is probably well placed. You've got those contacts to into the other agencies to bring them together, and certainly could identify some stakeholders that could be invited through.
Yeah, and Councillor Potter just raised a really good point around that adverse action plan that was developed. Was that a BBRF grant outcome or a DCP grant outcome, drought communities? Yeah, was there, like, it might be worth taking that off the shelf and actually having a look at what recommendations, I know it's different disaster, but there may be some good findings in that as well that we could introduce into this program and discussion. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think this would follow on from that. So yeah, it would be certainly refine that and do some work, because I think it even needed some because it was really ended up fairly high level and not really specific deliverables. Whereas I think this might give the opportunity to, as I think it identified the mapping and those sort of outcomes. So it didn't go down to that detail. Whereas I think it was a high level touching. So I think this will help follow up from there.
Thanks, Manager. The local disaster recovery group will continue to meet, I'd imagine, and most of those parties are at the table there, that might be the most effective mechanism through which you could have that conversation. Thank you. Yeah. Further speakers? Okay. So the recommendation is that the committee recommend to council that a list of potential projects be developed for delivery under the Local Recovery and Resilience Grant Funding Program for council's endorsement. Do we have a mover? Councillor Potter, seconded Councillor Jones. Okay, further speakers?
Sorry, Mr. Mayor,
Councillor Duff.
Just wondering whether we should put a timeline on that, because I know we think we've got plenty of time, but the next thing we're rushed. We have those projects together by a certain time, a date.
Yeah, I think through you, Mr. Mayor. So operationally, we were, I suppose, trying to get this officer on board, sort of for the start off on the 1st of July, just purely for a next financial year. So we'd get that person in place, and then I suppose you would need those 6 to 8 weeks to try pull together a more refined list. So I think initially we can bring back a couple of, like the signage trailer and some of those infrastructure works. We go away and work with the CEO as actually putting a rough program together. So because some of those things, because we would certainly like to see some of that resilient stuff, but if we can, say, put a bucket together towards X amount of dollars for a signage trailer and that, so we can start to put a draft budget together. But yeah, it's still probably a work in progress. We just haven't got to that detail yet.
Through Mr. Mayor, so just wondering if we could say a particular standing committee meeting, like say, in however many months, so it comes back to one of those particular standing committees.
Yeah, so if we said something like, August or something, like we probably wouldn't. We would probably work towards putting some things in place, but yeah, maybe something like August standing committee.
Thank you, General Manager. May August. Councillor Duff.
Thank you. Yes, I'd like to have that included. Thank you.
Thank you. Further speakers? No? We'll go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 7.3 in-kind support, Bacon Fest 2022 is at 42. Okay, so I think it's fairly clear there, clearly laid out that the recommendation is that the committee recommend to council that council approve the requested in-kind assistance to the Bacon Fest subject to available resources. There is a list there that councillors would have had the opportunity to have a look at. Do we have a mover? Councillor Potter, seconded Councillor Jones. Any speakers? Councillor Shoemaker.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I have been through the list. I can see it's quite extensive. However, I'm very mindful there will be thousands of people in the CBD at that time, and things like removal of rubbish, making sure our community is safe with the placement of street banners and furniture in the street for the event, I think are things that, it's important that council's actually involved in those things. I'm also really mindful of the toilet facilities and making sure with COVID and alike that we are doing what we can to kind of support that crew and keeping them clean and tidy. And I see here, General Manager O'May, it says that Bacon Fest will cover the additional cleaning for COVID requirements, but they're asking us to provide a cleaning contract detail to Bacon Fest. So I guess I just had a question about, like, would that be in exceedance of our normal cleaning requirements? And I guess I'm just keen in terms of the logistics of some of these things, ensuring you've got the resources to deliver on them, or how you'll go about negotiating this process with Bacon Fest.
Yeah, through Mr. Yeah, so this is probably similar to previous years, particularly with the cleaning. So we have our contract cleaners. So we do, over that period, given the amount of additional people in the CBD, we do additional cleans. So yeah, we do usually work through with Bacon Fest. So that comes at additional costs. But it is delivered through our contract cleaners. I think just the one I did put in the recommendation was just said subject to available resources. So there was the forklift and use of a forklift driver was sort of one thing that we haven't offered previously. So yeah, that was just something whether we actually had available qualified operators for that, and whether the forklift was available. So that was just, there could be things like that, the variable messaging, signage, just depending on whether we've got, if we've got flood events or things in use. So some of these things might still need to be hired from external sources. We'll talk through with the committee, like the garbage and that sort of thing. We have to work out the programs with them. We've just got to work through the logistics with them. But we don't want to just commit to them, say, yes, we'll definitely do this, and then find that we haven't got any of forklift drivers and that they're stuck. So that will be done well in advance, but we've just listed out all of the requests that are there.
Thank you, General Manager. Okay, further speakers? If not, we'll go to the vote. Those in favour, carried unanimously. Thank you all. 8.1 is the Rural Services NRM Planning and Compliance Services Portfolio Report. It's at page 44 in light of Councillor Henson's absence. So I suggest that we take that as read. The recommendation is that Councillor Henson's Rural Services Natural Resource Management Planning and Compliance Services Portfolio Report to Council be received for information. Do we have a mover? Councillor Potter, seconder. Councillor Duff. Speakers. Councillor Duff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just with that amendment to the planning scheme, I think that we have a huge shortage of residential land across our region, and I would like to see that as part of our amendments to our planning scheme that we zone more residential land. So I just wanted to get some feedback on how to make that happen.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So I think through this process, we will just need to identify what is currently available and what is serviced. So probably just have to take it on notice a bit. We will have to go through that process of identifying what is available and definitely we have emerging communities area zone, but whether there is actual the infrastructure there or the need is there to actually turn those into live zones. And so that will be a town-by-town assessment on what's available. But I'm not sure, Mike, if you've got anything extra.
Yes, through the chair. Exactly right, General Manager. The planning scheme assessment wasn't specifically designed to identify residential zonings. It was in relation to amendments to the scheme. The consultants are working through the issues that are raised in the workshop. And I guess they'll come back they're coming back next week, I hope, by the end of this week or early next week with some the information, and I'd hope to bring that back to council in June. So I'll just take the question on notice specifically about we could add that into the equation with the brief if council requires.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Managers. Councillor Potter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On the very last paragraph, they've got here that we've only had one case of Ross River in our area. Can I just make people very aware that one case leads to 2, which leads to 10, which leads to a Dunsite more. So please take care of yourselves. Make sure you tip out all that extra water, and then you've got the other mosquito, the beautiful Aedes aegypti. So please tip out any water, especially during this time of year, and take care of yourselves and cover up. You might not think you're going to get anything from a mosquito bite because they do look so small and adorable. So, sorry, I was thinking of another word there, but yeah, I thought I'd better not say that. So, so they are bloody annoying little creatures. So I just want everyone to take care of themselves because it's just not nice.
Further speakers? Councillor Schumacher.
Yes, it's great to see in the planning report, I can hardly believe 103 requests still in April. That's extraordinary. It's great to see that people are taking up that opportunity for a pre-lodgement meeting with 3 of those conducted. Just wanted to acknowledge that. I think that's really wonderful. And the 8 applications received for the Development Incentive Scheme, I guess I'd like to think that's a recognition that the scheme is actually encouraging growth in the region and having some impact. And Yes, no, really grateful for the report. Also note the extensive work that the environmental health team's doing in terms of their routine food inspections across the region. I just wanted to understand, so there's 222 licensed premises that you've reported here. Is there a actual time, and I guess this is hard because of the nature of the inspection, but just thinking about some of those small businesses and the challenges they're currently facing, do we kind of give them a notice period that will be popping in at this time, or do we sort of hit them cold? I'm just thinking about the logistics of actually, being able to stop what you're doing. I know a number of workplaces are struggling for staff at the moment because of COVID. So I guess I just wanted to have that conversation with you around how we work with businesses to deliver those inspections, but don't actually impact on their operations. I know it's an important part of their operations, don't get me wrong, but yeah, I just know it's quite challenging out there at the moment for small business.
Through the Mayor. Yes, Councillor, thank you for that question. In relation to inspections, council officers are only required or only allowed to inspect during times of operation. However, we do normally, our normal process is to contact someone to make sure they're available, particularly the manager or the owner of the business. So we can speak to someone with some authority, and we always follow it up with a notice, or if there's nothing to be undertaken, then we advise them that on the day. So it is sometimes, look, it can be inconvenient because, as you said, when operations are happening, and we have had some operators, I have to say, who had expressed some concern about times of operation, but then we've worked with them on follow-up inspections. We've conducted follow-up inspections at a more convenient time. So that is the process. Generally, there is an inspection program, and I guess a lot of inspections are cold, if that's the question you asked. But there are some premises that that have requested, and we have advised them when we're coming so that we can get some coordination with their operations, particularly the larger or premises that have particular processes on particular days. So that does happen, but generally businesses are cold because they're operating at the time.
Yeah, thank you for the context.
Through you, Mr Mayor, and Mike would know, myself, through doing a number of these inspections in previous years, so normally they are unannounced, but normally we are intrusive in our inspections, and the businesses can generally operate. It's more that follow-up. If we do need to talk to them, then that might be pre-programmed, is to follow up after we have done the initial inspection, but generally they would be the unannounced, and then when we're following up with them, we program in time so we can actually discuss the issues with the relevant people.
Thank you, managers. Further speakers? To the vote, those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 8.2 is the Natural Resource Management Operational Update at 47, and it is recommended that the NRM Operational Update be received for information. Do we have a mover? Councillor Potter, seconder. Councillor Jones, speakers. Go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 8.3, Planning and Land Management Operational Update at 50. Recommended that the Planning and Land Management Operational Update be received for information. Do we have a mover? Councillor Duff, second Councillor Potter. Speakers. Some of the data, General Manager and Manager, is looking promising in terms of the development applications that have been happening and building certifications across the region. When one calculates that, year to date, we're actually tracking ahead of last financial year. So clearly the staff have got a lot going on, a large workload in this area. So, and of course it also is a excellent indication as to the amount of work that's been happening. Even the April figures were strong in relation to certifications, building certifications, and also particularly noting those development incentive expressions of interest in the month of April far exceeded out what we've seen in previous months. Is there anything you wanted to share with the committee at this stage, General Manager or Manager?
Yes, Mr Mayor, through the Chair.
you.
Yeah, precisely, there has been a tremendous amount of applications coming in, still strong. The staff have been working very hard in relation to completing applications, as well as inquiries and certificates and planning certificates and building inquiries. So it just indicates that the market is still strong through this year. We expect the indication is that in the next 12 months or so, the market may see a bit of a levelling out due to the interest rate rises, but it is still strong.
Thank you, Manager. Okay, we have further speakers. Councillor Shoemaker.
I just had a question in regards to the enormous amount of applications that we're receiving. Just wanted to understand, with the Tech One project and the Business Systems project, is there view or vision into the future to take some of these applications, to be able to submit your applications online for some of the, I guess, the more simpler applications that we may receive? Is there any work in the pipeline in regards to that into the future? General Manager O'May?
Through you, Mr Mayor, I'd say in the short term, no. So it's not part of the current sort of Tech One, but yeah, certainly the application and online is somewhere we would like to get to. So it is something probably just not in the short term, but medium term most definitely. So I suppose that's probably the short answer to that one. Yeah, it hasn't been identified, scoped out or anything, but it is something that we would like to look at when we can catch breath one day.
Yeah, certainly I recognise the impact on your team and you know, the challenges in looking at those bigger projects. But think into the future, like it would be an interesting conversation to have around the resourcing of a project like that. I recognise we may need external supports or something to make that happen, but I've just been sniffing around, you know, and admittedly my sister works for Moreton Bay Council in their planning team, and just amazing the information you can find online. I guess I'm thinking about how do we reduce the impact on our resources that we have for some of those less complicated. I know she's very excited she can sign off on pool fences now, which is a big achievement for her. And I guess I'm thinking about how there are opportunities for those less complicated projects into the future that take away our technical staff, that may be able to be processed with more streamlined online systems. So I don't know whether that's something we can consider in the op plan next year, in terms of just actually doing some work, pressing pause and looking at how we may be able to scope a project like that into the future, so that we can consider it for our next budget discussions or something of those lines. I'm just mindful of how we reduce the burden on our operational staff, because I don't think numbers like these, I know we're going to be working through the restructure and alike, but I don't think numbers like these, with the resources that we have, that it's sustainable. And I guess we need to be opening our minds to other opportunities to see those outcomes. So that's some of my random thinking around this, but it's great to see that strong push for growth in our region. And yeah, I'd certainly welcome any comments in terms of how you may look to scope or put a project like that on the table for consideration. I completely respect that there's not a lot of time for those conversations, but I think in the longer term they could be beneficial.
Okay, further speakers? Yeah, Mike,
Through the Mayor, yes,
take that
Councillor.
on notice.
Just to add a little bit of context to that too. Yes, we have had internal discussions in relation to staff on those processes. Of course, absolutely desirable. Getting information at the front end. It's just like preparing fact sheets and things like that, of that nature, where we provide that information and people don't have to contact us. So we've had those discussions. It's about programming it in and budgets, but we're well aware of other councils, other entities that have the processes, and even in relation to having the mobile data available for staff on inspections. That sort of thing. We are looking towards that, and that's in the future years to develop that. I think
Thank
it'd
you,
be a
Manager.
very great adjunct to our teams.
Thank you, Manager. Okay, let's continue on. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 8.4, Coolabunnya Sale Yards Working Group Report is at 55, where it is recommended that the committee recommends to Council that the report be received and Council adopt the Coolabunnya Sale Yards Working Group Action Plan as presented, and that the working group be invited to view recent capital works at Coolabunnya Sale Yards. Do we have a mover? Councillor Duff, seconded Councillor Potter. Speakers? Councillor Shoemaker?
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much for the report and the work that's gone into the Coolabunnya Sale Yards Action Plan. I just wanted to check, I did read in the report that we do have an annual depreciation cost of approximately $30,000 per year for the Coolabunnya Sale Yard. I guess I wondered if, I know we had put some money in the budget, but I was just wondering in terms of some of these projects that have been identified, if they're covered by the current budget and depreciation, or whether, they've gone on a wish list. I think some of them seem to be really important minor capital works that would make a big difference to the operation of the sale yard. And I guess I was just keen to make sure that they were funded or able to be pursued. And that's my question.
Okay, Manager, thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, through you. Councillor Shoemaker, which projects do you specifically mean? Sorry.
So on your action plan here, line item 3, the review and online of automated transactions, line item 5, utilisation, review sale yards to expand utilisation for speciality and stud selling facilities. You've got a budget there of 10,000, sort of saying it's pending limitations for an external study. I guess some of these projects that you've identified, I just want to see where we're at, whether you need more resources in this area, because I think the work you're doing is really valuable.
Thank you. Again, through you, Mr Mayor. They are funded to a certain degree. So this year we've had a large allocation because it was a catch-up from prior years, and we are getting on top of that now. So next year, I think, from memory, is about $50,000 for capital expenditure at the sale yards. We really haven't decided what that will be yet. So, but I guess to answer your question, they're all funded as best as we can get them through the 10-year capital works program, and it's based on priorities and needs. And should we start to generate more income at that sale yards, I would hope that more funding would become available for those particular projects. And I think they are a high priority because they really improve the operation of that facility, particularly that that automated transaction capability and those sorts of ones. They're not huge costs, so I think they're doable as we just move forward in that facility, and they will be self-funded, in my view. And Peter may have may support that or have a different view, but I think as we move forward, we will just tread softly and just incorporate those items into the budget as we move forward. So yeah, and they are funded out of the operation.
Yeah, thank you. I guess I'm also thinking about some of the work we've seen, like through the water and wastewater department, where we kind of looking at, and I know it's a separate business unit, all those things, but learnings in terms of that 10-year capital, like the pipe dream, what are the things that are absolutely needed that need to be funded over this period of the asset? And then I guess we can start to work at funding strategies to achieve that. Some of that may be grants, some of that may be operational, like to think operational revenue. But yeah, I guess that's where my head's at. And I think some of the items here are really critical to the ongoing sustainability of the facility. And I do believe if we spend that money wisely, we will see a return on that. So yeah, fully supportive.
Thank you, councillor. Can we move on? Anything further on this matter that's critical? We're conscious of time today. We need to finish up. I'm going to have to take a break for half an hour at 10:10 to do media engagements, and then we'll be back at 10:40, and then we've got to wrap up around 12:15. So let's move on. Councillor Duff, you had your light on. Anything further from you? Okay, let's go to the vote on this one. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. The next, we'll get this next one ticked off, and then we'll break. Spraying and weed control at 59, 8.5, and it's a report that I'd requested. The report pertaining to spraying and weed control be received and noted. Do we have a mover for that? Councillor Duff, seconded Councillor Potter. Any comments quickly? Councillor Duff?
Oh, sorry, Mr Mayor, yeah, I just wanted to, I did an RFI on the cost of weed management. It's $808,885.86, and we put $306,045 just to one contractor. And I just wanted to move that this committee recommends.
Let's get this one down first, councillor, before we have any further motions. Okay, so further speakers on the recommendation? Go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Okay. Yep, all good with that? Okay. Sorry? Okay. Rightio.
So, Mr Mayor, I'm happy to leave this till after we come back if you've got it, because it could take a little time.
Yeah, I think we're going to need to, it's now 10:09. That's resolved. I'll move that we adjourn the meeting for morning tea and resume at 10:40 a.m. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Jones, thank you. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Okay, now move that we resume the meeting. We have a seconder. Councillor Jones, those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. We are up to item 9.1 on the agenda, but I think Councillor Duff, you've got your light on. Thank you.
Mr Mayor. I wanted to move a recommendation that council begin the process to invite tenders for council's annual weed program, and that all suitably qualified contractors be given the opportunity to tender with a view to having a contract based on separate portions for targeted programs.
Okay, do we have a seconder for such? Councillor Jones has seconded. Over to you. Thank you, Councillor Duff.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I've spoken to Acting Manager Mark and General Manager O'May, and they're going out to tender in any case, but this way we're looking, well, I'm keen to see us, and I know that Councillor Hensham was keen to as well, look at, rather than just having, going out to tender for one big contract, to actually look at targeted programs and specific weed programs as opposed to just one broad brush, and giving, I think this is an opportunity to get our local contractors on board. I just said that, I mentioned before that we've been using one contractor and put $306,045 into the contractor, and I just think that there is an opportunity to spread that around and perhaps use some of our local contractors. So that's my recommendation on my resolution. Thank you.
Further speakers? Councillor Jones.
Yeah, just a question, Mr Mayor, to Councillor Duff. So with the current setup, we have one contractor all year round, is that correct? And you're looking to split that contract down to just have an individual as we need them? I'll just chase a little bit more clarity around what you're trying to achieve here. I seconded the motion, so I'm certainly happy to have the conversation and see what I sort of understand what you're saying, but just the initial, we have one contract, 306,000 going to one contractor all year round. So with your given the opportunity to tender with a view to having a contract based on separable portions for targeted programs, or just a little bit more clarity around that. Are you looking for another contract that spans the whole 12 months for a particular contractor, and then inside that you want to have opportunities for other contractors, or you just scrap that whole 12-month contract and want to have the opportunity to use any contractor at any time?
I think that thank you for the question through you, Mr. Mayor. I think it's more about, rather than just going, okay, let's get someone to do our weed spraying to all of our roads and all of our reserves and all of our, what else do? We do the reserves and main roads as well, one contractor, to just look at maybe, Parthenium at Cherbourg, or, we do someone to do the rat's tail, or like look at dividing it up so that to give our local contractors a chance to tender, rather than just saying one big bulk contract. And I know that Councillor Henshaw was keen to see that happen too. He thought we might be able to get better outcomes, more efficiencies, and also support our local contractors. And I just keen for Acting Manager Mark to maybe comment.
Okay, managers, thank you.
Well, my comment would be that we were moving towards a new tender in any case, so that was in the program. And, there's always two sides to it's a double-edged sword. If you have the one contractor, you have good control over their activities, and you're dealing with the one contractor, so it's consistent and it's easier to manage. But when you have other different contractors, you've got more contractors to deal with and to liaise with and to supervise and to manage. But I think we just test the marketplace and provide, as we always do, the opportunity to open that up to all suitably qualified contractors. And we may do that through the procurement process and document how we achieve that. So it might be that we do get different contractors doing different targeted programs, or it still could be, less, one contractor that does all those separable portions. That will come out through the procurement process, and the efficiencies and the outcomes measured through there. Does that make sense, Mr. Mayor? Thank you.
Thank you, Manager. Councillor Shoemaker.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm concerned we don't really have a report or on where things are at, and clearly Councillor Duffer's portfolio, you've gotten more information than I do on this matter. So at this point in time, I'm actually not willing to support this. I'd actually like to propose a procedural motion that we lay it on the table until a report can be provided by the staff, because as per our standing orders and agreement, there was no notice of motion, and there hasn't been time to prepare for this conversation. So I'd like to move that the matter be laid on the table. Until a report be brought back, to the next standing committee meeting.
Okay, do we have a seconder? Procedural motion to lay the matter on the table. Do we have a seconder for such? No, no, not a procedural. No, it's just unfortunately not, Councillor. Procedural motion, we just have to go to the vote. Okay, no seconder. We'll take the motion then as lapsed. Motion has lapsed, and we'll continue the debate. Councillor Potter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, just a couple of questions to Councillor Duff, and also probably to Manager Mark. Now, the first question would be, do I understand this right? So you want separate spraying groups for Parthenium, for rat's tail, so each of those are going to go out into separate contracts? Is that how you're thinking? That was my first question. My second question is, well, when does the contract actually come up, and when have we started the process of starting to write the tender up to put it out to the community? Thank you.
The second question first. We haven't done anything yet to move towards inviting tenders for the weed contract. We know it's due, and I can't quote the date, but it's due. It's due now.
Through Mr. Mayor, so it's due the end of 2023. So we've got to do one now to actually it has to be done by 2023. But yeah, it does take a time to get through that. So that's why we were starting basically with this renewal now.
Through you, Mr Mayor, just to Councillor Potter, yes, the idea was, and I know that Councillor Henson had raised it too, to actually look at spreading it around rather than having one contractor, that we might be able to get more efficiencies if we went out to the market for different projects. That was my intention. And as far as Councillor Shoemaker's suggestion that I have other information, this was what I have tabled here was a request for information. It went to all councillors, how much money we spend on weeds and how much the particular contractor that I'm mentioning has been paid. $303,045 was also information that was given to all councillors, and the discussion with Councillor Henson and has been shared around this table, council table, about the potential of doing more with our weed spraying through our biosecurity program. So that's just in response to Councillor Shoemaker's suggestion that I have other information that hasn't been given to the rest of the councillors.
Councillor Shoemaker.
Yes, thank you. I did see the request for information and read the report in regards to the budget items and how it had been spent. My point is more around the fact that I don't have the facts about this decision in terms of we've had a discussion here today around the timeframes. We've got it due in 2023. The team are talking about a new tender in any case. I guess I was proposing to give them more time to provide the information so council could make an informed decision. I don't feel I can make an informed decision on this matter with the information and the hearsay discussions that we've had. I would prefer to see a report with the facts and details where we can work through it as a team and determine the best outcome. I don't disagree with what you've put forward. I think actually it could very well be a good opportunity for more contractors to have an opportunity to be part of it, but I'm not willing to make a decision like this without suitable information. And I see that you've put forward a request for information that was specifically to the costs. I guess I'm thinking more about the program, the strategy, and many of the unanswered questions I have, and that's why I won't be supporting the motion today.
Councillor Jones.
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. Just through you to the manager and general manager. This motion and to Councillor Duff. So this motion is actually asking to begin the process to invite tenders. The bit that I need more clarification on for myself to decide whether I'm going to support it is around the opportunity to tender with a view to having a contract based on separate portion for targeted programs. So you have indicated in your comments already that you're going out to tender very shortly because we have to, because we need to have something in place by 2023. So with that motion, how are you proposing to put tenders out for a contract for a 12-month spraying period? And then how do you work out based on separable portions? I just need some more explanation, more clarification around how you're going to get a 12-month contract going out to tender to everybody, because I believe that there's a lot more sprayers out there now than what we did have, because it's a very competitive thing, so we will get a better result hopefully. But I just want some more clarification around that based on separable portions of the targeted program in that contract that we're offering as well. How does that work?
Yeah, through you, Mr Mayor, the contract has a couple of different elements to it, so it's not just the spraying. So there's certain areas that I, off the top of my head, look at separating out. So we have a requirement that the contractors are available to become qualified biosecurity officers to do property inspections. So they might do properly, like noxious weed inspection, so it's not necessarily the on-ground spraying. So you could actually separate out that sort of proportion. We and certainly, like say, the main roads contract is a completely separate contract that we get funding under, so potentially that could be separated out. We probably just need to look at, like, certainly to happy to look at it, whether we can split it up, because we actually asked for, in the previous contractor, a contractor that can do all of these things, have an aquatic, a boat, so we can do water weed treatments, have ATVs for property inspections, have like we do our streets spraying programs. So there's a number of different elements of it, and we haven't drilled down and actually separated them out, but it could do. So yeah, if you bulk them all up, then you get the economy of scale. So you get one contractor that can deliver all of those, but it does narrow the field down on who's got the capacity to do that. So it was something we could look at. I'd be a bit hesitant to split it out on spraying on weed types because if you're there spraying rat's tail, you'll want to treat all of the prohibited weeds. So it's for me, it would be just looking at some of those, maybe that property inspection. Like if we get like when we had our honey locust, one of those outbreaks, we call on these to have the to back up our guys to go and do those property inspections and targeted inspections. So yeah, there is a balance with this because if the contractor doesn't have the resources when we need to call on them, if we separate it out too far, then you just dilute the ability for them to respond. So yeah, happy to look at the separate targeted portions, but there will be benefits both ways. As Mark said, through the assessment, we'll have to just look at the pros and cons of that.
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. Thanks, GM. So to me, what you're saying is that that process, you haven't begun that process. You haven't started to break down the proposed contract that you're going to put out. So therefore, if we make a decision today, like Councillor Shoemaker's alluded to, we're probably not to the stage where we're confident going forward what contracts we're going to put out.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, so we would go away from here. So yeah, the tender won't be out next week. I can assure you of that. So yeah, there is a bit of work to do, but if we know that we're actually putting it, we can actually have a look at identifying parcels that could be separated out without impacting the delivery of the service.
So therefore, would it be beneficial to add into that recommendation that we do have, let you guys do some work and bring it back to a future standing committee meeting for discussion? Because again, understand what Councillor Duff is trying to achieve, but I think right now, I don't think we have the information. You guys aren't giving me any confidence that you're ready to go. So, Mr Mayor, I'd just like to add to that something be brought back for further discussion if Councillor Duff is willing for that to happen.
Yes, through you, Mr Mayor. Yes, I am willing for that to happen.
Okay, that being the case, Bree, if we could go back to the start, the council begin the process of preparing tender arrangements and then delete to invite tenders. I don't think we'll want to invite tenders, will we, until we've got our process mapped out. For the annual, such that a weed program, such that where possible, all suitably qualified. So take the word "and" that out. And a report, and that go to the end then, be brought to the July community. I'm looking for a nod or a shake of the head here, Manager, to the July Community Stand Committee meeting. Feedback from officers. There's a yep there. Okay, Councillors Duff and Jones.
Thank you. Yes, Mr Mayor, I'm happy with that.
Thank you. Okay. All right. So we've got that change there. Further speakers in relation to the motion as is now presented. Councillor Shoemaker.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. Based on the amendments to the motion, I am willing to support the motion today. I do think this is a service level discussion. There's many more implications with contracts like these, and it would be proper process for our council to give the team appropriate time to do their homework and bring a report and the recommendations back for discussion. So I'm much more comfortable with this recommendation as it stands. Thank you.
Okay, further speakers or straight to Councillor Duff for closing?
Happy to put it to the vote. Thank you.
Okay, we'll go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 9.1, Waste Management Portfolio Report is at page 60, where it's recommended that the Waste Management Portfolio Report to Council be received for information. Do we have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Potter, and second to Councillor Jones. Speakers? Councillor Potter.
Yeah, look, I would just like to welcome Haral again to the team. He's certainly hit the ground running, and he's doing an amazing job. So I would just like to say welcome to Haral, and look forward to seeing your work come to in the future and for a long time with the South Bennett Regional Council.
Thank you, Councillor Potter. Further speakers? Councillor Schumacher.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. Earlier in April, we were lucky enough to attend a workshop where we discussed, I know not all councillors were available for the workshop, but we did discuss recycling options and waste management options into the future and our new waste opportunity to renew our waste management contract. Following that workshop, I was of the understanding we'd get a report and we'd reconvene and work through it. I know I'm just very mindful there were some very tight timeframes presented at that workshop, and I guess I just wanted to follow up and understand where we were at with that conversation and whether there'll be more conversations going forward. So just a question to certainly Manager Mike and General Manager O'May.
Yes, yes, Councillor, through the Mayor. Yes, look, we're following up with that information presented. We've just been extremely busy and a little bit tight in relation to timeframes regarding budgets and so on. We're seeking to get some analysis of the proposed recycling costs as regard to costs for the bins in relation to rating, in relation to the rates system. So when we have that available, we'll produce that. And I guess I think the intention was to have an update at next month's meeting, but I'll follow that up with the Chair.
Yeah, through Mr Mayor, yeah, we were certainly hoping, and as a executive leadership team, we discussed this yesterday about trying to get some extra workshops together so we could get this in front of council in a workshop, even initially just to follow up those discussions, because, yeah, just looking at it, particularly around those options for recycling and waste. So, yeah, certainly over the next couple of weeks, we hope to be discussing that with council.
Thank you, managers. Shall we go to the vote? Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 9.2, Environment and Waste Services update at 61. Recommended that the Environment and Waste Services update be received for information. Do we have a mover? Councillor Potter, secondly Councillor Shoemaker. Speakers, Councillor Potter.
Yeah, just a question through you, Mr Mayor, with regards to the vehicle that was abandoned at the Malar Closed Quarry and Landfill. Isn't that, I'm just curious, like, is that a closed off area? How did they get the vehicle in? And I'm actually have trouble reading what this says in the little graph we have. So I'm just wondering what the outcome for that was.
Thank you, managers.
Yes, through the Chair. Look, I'd have to come back with some details on that matter. That's through our waste officer. We've got a number of staff off at the moment, particularly in the waste section, off with COVID. So I'd have to come back to council with that detailed information.
Thank you, managers.
Through you, Mr Mayor, we might, when we've got that, circulate that via email to councillors. I know there was 2 vehicles there in different spaces, and one had been removed when we went back to investigate. But generally with an abandoned vehicles, we have an arrangement with one of the tow companies who will remove those and store them until they can get an owner. There was police reports on both of those that were provided, so there's a police number. We'll follow up and get some details.
Thank you, managers. Shall we go to the vote? Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 10 point. Oh. Okay, Councillor Henson's online. Welcome, Councillor Henson.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor, and my fellow colleagues and managers in chambers. Apologise for being late. It's been a rather challenging morning here this morning and night, let me assure you, with the rain events, and no doubt that's been not only just in the South Bennett but across the entire state. So yeah, it's very wet out here and very wet across the state. My apologies for being late, and my apologies if I do drop out. I've had numerous issues, as you please appreciate, with phones, mobile phone service, and certainly my connections this morning. So do apologise if I disappear, but thank you and glad to be here.
Thank you, Councillor Hitchin. We'll now go to Councillor Duff to present the Rural Resilience, Parks and Gardens, Property and Facility Management and Indigenous Affairs Portfolio Report at 66. Thank you, Councillor Duff.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So the first item is Parks and Gardens. General mowing and maintenance have continued during the month with focus on ensuring the entrances and exits of our towns were looking inviting leading up to the Easter and Anzac Day long weekends. I'd like to congratulate and thank the staff for ensuring that all the cenotaphs and gardens parks looked amazing in readiness for Anzac Day. I would also like to express my gratitude to the staff that assisted with in-kind support on the day with the setting up and dismantling of marquees, chairs and signage, which was a great assistance to the RSL sub-branch committees, ensuring that all towns' Anzac Day ceremonies ran smoothly. The Nanango crew arranged for an overdue tidy-up at the back of residential dwellings in Hawthorne Street along the old rail network. This was well received by residents, with positive feedback being received back thanking council staff and advising the residents are very happy with the work. Work has been completed in Keith Goodchild Park, Mergen, with the removal of concrete and roadside gardens. This has been replaced by turf and a smaller garden in the middle of the island. Mergen Rotary have installed the refurbished sign to complete this joint project. Council has applied for $20,000 funding through Lou O'Brien MP for a tree planting project to celebrate the Queen's Jubilee. The project involves planting jacaranda trees in the vacant section of QE2 Park at the intersection of Lamb and Krebs Street, Mergen. The proposed location of the project will be known as the Jubilee section of QE2 Park. The concept is to create an avenue of trees consisting of 14 jacaranda trees, 7 mature trees and 7 saplings. Each of the 7 trees are to commemorate each decade that the Queen has been on the throne. The established trees are to commemorate 7 selected local elderly people to be incorporated in the official opening, with the saplings to commemorate 7 young people to be recognised at the opening. Traditional owners are also included in the ceremony. If successful, the project will occur later this year as part of the current works at QE2 Park. Aerodromes. Weekly inspections have been carried out by airport reporting officers at both Kingaroy and Wondai aerodromes as scheduled. A fuel reduction exercise was organised by Council with the assistance from QFES to burn 50 acres of overgrown vegetation on the western side of the aerodrome adjoining the Kingaroy-Kuya Road. This exercise was undertaken on the 19th of April with the assistance of 7 rural fire brigades. The weather conditions on the day were just perfect for the burn, which started at 2:30 p.m. and completed at 6:30 p.m. Residents in the Tobinga Village housing estate were notified by letter drops and media releases prior to the event taking place. This burn also cleaned up overgrown areas in readiness for the installation of the new feral animal fence, which commenced construction on the 3rd of May. Dams. Both Badoom and Bjelke-Petersen dams have been extremely busy over the 3 consecutive long weekends. The dams were considered a prime Easter destination with 1,348 visitors at BP Dam, with all cabins, en-suites and powered sites fully booked. 296 unpowered sites also squeezed in the remaining green space areas over this period. Badooma Dam welcomed 914 guests over the Easter weekend, with all cabins booked for this period. The day use area at BP Dam was also very busy, with families enjoying the barbecues and picnic areas. Considering how busy the dams were, most guests were on their best behaviour and complaints were minimal. The managers need to be commended as they worked through some trying periods at BP Dam, with FBOS failing over the 3 days due to the massive amount of load on the network. All other services handled the high demand required over the 3 days with no issues: water, power and amenities. Both dams are proving very popular for reunions, family birthdays and wedding guests. This month, BP hosted family and school reunions along with wedding guests. Badooma Dam has had 2 contracting companies staying in the cabins and bunkhouse during weekdays whilst doing work around the Proston Heisel areas. Also, just a reminder that the Festival of the Dams is on again at Badooma Dam from Saturday the 21st of May to Sunday the 22nd of May, organised by Fishing Freshwater Australia. The annual fishing spectacular is hosted by the Badooma Dam Caravan and Recreation Park and proudly sponsored by the South Bennett Regional Council. Therefore, if you are interested in participating, get your team registered, as places are filling up quickly for the 40-team event. Rail Trail. Sawpit Gully crossing that was totally washed away following the recent rain events is nearing completion, with the cutting and drainage works finished with only the road base to be laid. Also, 500 metres of gravel has been laid along the trail from Burton's Road heading to the hospital. A natural spring is opened on the trail near the hospital bridge, making the access impossible for the truck and dog to continue spreading the gravel along the trail. Contractors are working on a solution to allow work to continue in this area. Therefore, the unsealed section of the rail trail is now passable with caution from Mergen to Gameri. And finally, in rural resilience, Council has now completed 4 flood recovery breakfasts and 2 information sessions, with the third one to be held at BPDM in the coming weeks. That was actually postponed. The first primary producer information session was held at Mondial Hall on the 5th of April. This event was well attended with approximately 30 people. The second information session was held at Cloyna, and again another well attended event with a further 30 to 40 people in attendance, with our next and last information session to be held at BPDM, which we are hoping will be just as successful as the other 2 events that have been held. These information sessions were well received and attended by not only our primary producers but our local agencies, and a big shout out to those that have dedicated their time to these sessions outside of their normal working hours. Our region thanks you. Having now completed the 4 flood recovery breakfasts, we have raised over $2,800, with the Kingaroy breakfast raising over $1,100. Our Mergen breakfast alone raised over $700, on top of Bendigo Bank presenting Blaze Aid with a cheque for $10,000. A statue of a red kelpie was donated by Preston and Corinna Fisher, made out of corrugated iron salvaged from the demolition of cattle stalls at Mergen Showgrounds, was auctioned off for $600, and Dr. Graham McAllister and his wife Sue from the Mergen Family Medical Practice also donated another $1,000. What an astonishing effort. Thank you, Mergen. The third breakfast was held at Nanengo, raising over $500, and our final breakfast at Wandai also raised over $400. A big thank you also goes out to our smaller communities. We appreciate your support. With all proceeds going to Blaze Aid to purchase much needed materials, these events were a great way for the community to show Blaze Aid volunteers just how much they have been appreciated in supporting our community. I'd like to congratulate and thank Blaze Aid for all their hard work and look forward to providing them with these much needed funds. I'd like to move my report. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Potter. Speakers. Councillor Shoemaker.
Yes, thank you to Councillor Duff for the comprehensive report. There's certainly so much happening in the region. Great to hear that the rail trail's been, the work there is ongoing and it has been repaired, and certainly just remarkable the generosity of our region in supporting those impacted by the floods. It's really been wonderful to see the team work together to raise some much needed funds to help our farmers replace their fences. I just had a question for you in relation to the project you've reported here for the Queen's Jubilee, the $20,000 funding application to Lou O'Brien. I just moved a motion back in February to support, certainly contact all of our federal ministers around potential projects. And I'm just mindful that closed on the 11th of April. So I just wondered what other projects we put forward, General Manager O'May.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So this was in response to that motion. So we did get through there, but the 2 other electorates, Flynn and David Maranoa, to have a mental blank. So we did miss out in those 2 areas, and it was basically we had a miscommunication around the closing date. So we downloaded the guidelines and it had a closing date of, it might have been, whether it was the 11th of April, but they actually had ran expression of interest processes prior to that, and so we actually did miss out in those 2 areas. So this was the only one that we got up, was in the Wide Bay electorate.
Yes, thank you. While that's disappointing, I understand with the workload at the moment. I just wondered, it was a really great opportunity. Was there any indication there'd be another round? Because from what I read in the guidelines, it run over 22, 23. Was there any other future rounds proposed? I guess it's tricky with the federal election.
Yeah, through you, Ms. Mayor. I think it was for the delivery of the programs, but given that they are in response for the Queen's Jubilee, I'd be surprised if there was, I think it was a thing. So, we do have to, part of the program was we do have to at least launch the project, and then the trees can be planted out over that 2023. But I don't think there'll be another round. If there is, we're certainly happy to look, keep an eye out. But I wouldn't think so.
Thank you, General Manager. Further speakers? To the vote, those in favour, Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 10.2, petition from students of Wheatland State School at 69. It's recommended, the committee recommended council that council advises students of Wheatland State School that their ideas for future recreation activities in the South Bennett has been investigated and discussed with PCYC Mergen. PCYC Mergen is not a suitable location for a trampoline centre and not a recreation activity supported by PCYC Mergen. Do we have a mover? Councillor Duff. Seconder, Councillor Potter. Thank you. Any speakers? Councillor Duff.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, I met with, and Manager Leanne met with the PCYC, and yes, it's not one of their activities and there's no space there. They'd love to be able to support the students of the Wheatland School, but it just can't work for PCYC. So unfortunately, we have to write back to them and say that it's not something that PCYC can achieve.
Good. Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Shoemaker.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. I was very impressed by the work the Wheatland State School students had put into actually preparing a petition and presenting it to us. It's wonderful to see young people in our region being a part of the democratic process. I guess my thinking, whilst I understand on this occasion certainly the reasons provided here around why a trampoline centre wouldn't be supported at the Mergen PCYC, I do think it's a wonderful opportunity. I'd like to see our council actually meet with the students and brainstorm or talk through some other ideas that they may have that may be relevant. While this one hasn't suited, I think there is a great opportunity. I don't want to discourage their efforts, and if they have other ideas that are relevant, I think it would be wonderful for our council to hear them. So I was just wondering if that may be able to be factored into the letter that we send back, Mr CEO, an invitation to meet with council to share other ideas that they may have that are relevant to our region and that community planning process that we're keen to get underway. I know we had started that under the Mayor's lead in the beginning of the term, but I think this is a great example of people providing genuine feedback that can be rolled out over time. So I'd just like to see us incorporate that in the letter.
Thank you, Mr CEO. Further speakers to the vote? Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Okay, 10.3 Parks and Gardens update at page 70. It's recommended the Parks and Gardens update.
Excuse me, Mr Mayor.
Oh,
Need to be
sorry.
excused.
Oh, yes. Go ahead, Councillor Potter. Okay. Recommended that the Parks and Gardens update be received for information. Do we have a mover? Councillor Duff, seconded Councillor Jones. Speakers? Councillor Jones.
Yeah, just quickly, Mr Mayor, just with Councillor Duff's report there before in regards to QE2 Park, that's obviously being coinciding with all the works that we've got proposed up there for the upgrade to the park and all that. No doubt the Parks and Gardens will be aware of that, and you're working with them, obviously. Yep. Thank you. And Botanical Parks renewal. I'll actually leave that go. It's all right. We're moving. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, Councillor. Okay, further speakers? Councillor Shoemaker.
It was just wonderful to see in the operations update the remarkable difference a good clean-up had done to the Wandai Ball Park playground. Just wanted to thank and acknowledge the team for that. And I think it's a demonstration in many instances, you know, what a real difference can be made when we just put a little bit of love and care into some of our assets. So thank you, General Manager. I may please pass on our thanks to your team. That looks so much better than before. I'm sure much more inviting for children to play in, so thank you.
Okay. No further speakers. Can we go to the vote, Mr CEO? We've got a quorum here. Yep. Those in favour? We'll take that as carried unanimously, Bree. Thank you. Okay. 10.4, Properties Operational Update at 75. Recommended that the operational update be received for information. Do we have a mover? Councillor Jones, seconder. Councillor Shoemaker. Speakers. Okay, we'll go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 10.5, Consultation. Public consultation plan for resolution of hall tenures at 81. The recommendation is that the committee recommend to council that South Bennett Regional Council commence consultation for future tenure options for the Monjor, Tingura and Cloyna halls. Do we have a mover? Anyone prepared to move that? Councillor Shoemaker, seconded Councillor Jones. Speakers? Councillor Duff, thank you.
Through you, Mr Mayor, I was of the belief that if Monjor and Cloyna already have committees, that consultation would be just with those committees, that we didn't need to go out to the whole public. And I'm just thinking that would be very undermining of those committees that have worked for years to keep those halls going to just go out and consult as to who should have the owner, like the tenure of those halls. I think that's the Tingura one's different because there's no committee, but those active committees, I'm not comfortable with the recommendation.
Yeah, so Manager, your thoughts on just engaging directly with the hall committees for those two? Thank you.
No, most definitely. We fully aware of that. The meetings will be called through the hall committees. So in this case, we would actually be putting it through to them. I have spoken to Karen at Monjor, and the type of meeting that she will call will be open to the public, but we will be chairing it and we'll be presenting the information. So yeah, so it's through the committees as such. We certainly want to engage with them, but it needs to be a public meeting because the way the trust deed is written, it's for the benefit of the whole community, of the residents that are within the certain distance of the actual hall. So in regards to Tingura or Monjor, so Monjor is the 5 mile radius. So we just want to make sure that we're seen to be opening it to the entire public, but most definitely the outcome for Monjor and Cloyna is going to be very different to Tingura because they do have existing committees and we want to work with them to find the solution. And hopefully that is where, which I think it will be, that they will take on lease arrangements for the future.
Yeah, thank you, Manager. So just clarifying for committee, Monjor and Cloyna, there will be public meetings open to any members of the public that will be facilitated by those hall committees, and then the meeting itself obviously led by the council officers, and Tingura will be obviously a broader process where you look to engage with the broader community, I'd imagine, through council. Councillor Duff, thoughts on that? Thank you.
I'd just like to have that included in the recommendation, so it goes out to the public that it's in consultation with the Monjor and Cloyna Hall committees, so that it doesn't look like we're just going out in broad consultation.
Comabry, with the Monjor and Cloyna Hall committees to assist in facilitation of public meetings. Happy with that, Councillor Duff?
Yes.
Leanne,
Mr.
does that create any issues for you if we add that?
No, there's no issues. In the fact sheets that we've provided there, it clearly outlines that that's the process that we're going to use. But yes, certainly adding it to the recommendation is fine.
Thank you very much. Councillor Shoemaker.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm fully supportive of the motion and thank you for the comprehensive report. I do think I really enjoyed seeing on particularly the Monjor Hall fact sheet, the actual original current tenure document there. That's incredible to see. It's my view that these halls were built by the people and are owned by the people. So all stakeholders with a vested interest are invited to the table. I think it's very important that everybody gets an opportunity to have a say in terms of these conversations. Very much appreciate the work that the Cloyna and Monjor Hall committees do. It was wonderful. I know our council meeting ran late, so I didn't get out to the Cloyna Hall for the flood recovery, but I did get out to the Monjor Hall. It was wonderful to meet with the committee and just see how much they really do love the passion they have for their community and the time they invest in their hall. So I think these conversations are really important. It gives everybody, I guess, a clarity in terms of the way forward in regards to tenure, which seems like it's been put in a too hard basket for a very long time because of the complications with those old very old agreement. So it's wonderful that we're bringing this to the table and that we're able to work together toward the solution. So thank you for bringing it forward. I'm fully supportive of the motion as it stands.
Okay, further speakers? Go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Okay, we're now on to 10.6, request from SB Care to remove trees from the entrance to the Town Common Hall for installation of a rose garden at 89, where it is recommended that the committee recommend to council that permission be granted to SB Care Incorporated to relocate the Kingaroy Senior Citizens Club rose garden to the northern end of the hall around the existing flagpole, and permission be granted to SB Care Incorporated to trim the 2 trees at the front entrance of the Kingaroy Town Common Hall. Do we have a mover? Councillor Jones, seconded Councillor Potter. Speakers? Councillor Shoemaker?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Certainly appreciate the report and understand the couple of options there and that we're trying to work together toward a solution. It's wonderful to read, and I know those roses are absolutely stunning, that they've been donated by so many members of our community. So it's great to see everyone's efforts in trying to maintain that. I guess my question was really around the consultation piece that's gone on. It seems like from the report that SB Care and the Senior Citizens Group have been talking together about this project and that we've been really brought in on the end for the approval piece. But I guess I just wanted to confirm that, and just if there's any relevant information that council should know around the consultation before we make this decision, I would be grateful.
Thank you, Manager. Consultation with the senior citizens.
Yep, certainly through you, Mr Mayor. The consultation, you're exactly right, has just been with the Senior Cits and SB Care staff. We have not gone further than that in regards to asking the wider community and the sporting clubs around the roses being moved down to the actual facility. SB Care is certainly wanting to relocate the roses because of their works that they've got designed and happening at SB Care there, where the rose garden will no longer be a rose garden. So it is about finding a new home for the roses. But we certainly haven't gone any further than just talking to SB Care and their staff.
Are the senior citizens comfortable with this?
Senior citizens are very comfortable with their roses being moved down there. I suppose, you know, just for the purpose of looking after the roses, it's a good place to relocate them. I'm not sure long term. We probably need to have that discussion with them after because their lease does expire October next year. So what is the intentions after that? We probably haven't progressed with that discussion. And if the roses are there, are they staying forever, or would they relocate if SB Care is relocating back? We haven't had that discussion.
Thank you, Manager. You're comfortable, Councillor Potter? Thank you. Answer the question. Very good. Okay, I'm keen to go to the vote. Anything to add, Councillor Shoemaker, to the debate?
Just
Thank
had
you.
a question in terms of the garden itself. Is there any plaque or anything in the garden that we could relocate to recognise this? Maybe take that on notice, but I'm just really mindful of the sentiment and trying to find a compromise in what is a tricky situation.
Yes, councillor. The question would be really, as councillors happy to have a plaque or a major sign relocated. As you can appreciate, in the existing rose garden, there is a very large timber sign that does say Senior Sits. Councillors, are you happy for that sign to be relocated down into this garden, into this rose garden? If that's the case, then more than happy to move that sign down there.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Shall we go to the vote? Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 10.7, Highsville Progress Association Incorporated, request to lease lot 112 at 93, where it's recommended, as presented that Southport Regional Council, that the committee recommend to council that the council, in accordance with section 236(1)(b)(2) of the Local Government Regulation 2012, into a licence to occupy with the Highsville Progress Association for part of lot 112 on SP 116355 for a term of 3 years. Southport Regional Council delegate to the Chief Executive Officer the power to negotiate, finalise and execute the licence to occupy between Council and the Highsville Progress Association Incorporated on terms and conditions the Chief Executive Officer reasonably considers are satisfactory to Council. The South Bennett Regional Council notes that the licence to occupy will be subject to approval from the Department of Transport and Main Roads in accordance with clauses 2.4.3 of the lease between the State of Queensland, represented by DTMR, and South Bennett Regional Council. Do we have a mover? Councillor Duff, over to you.
Yes, Mr Mayor, I'm very excited about this. I think the Highways Progress Association will be too. Just wanted to know if we could put a date for the lease to commence, just so that we can give them some certainty. No,
Okay, so just to get this motion out on the floor, timeframe, General Manager, would 1 September be achievable? I know we talked about August previously, but would September be achievable? You're thinking as a target date at least?
Yeah, the only hold up we'll have is really through DTMR and any special conditions that we want to continue to negotiate through the development of the lease. But I'm thinking surely, yes, September would be fine for us to meet that.
Okay, so Bree, if we just go back, perhaps in point 1, we say that where it says enter into a licence, endeavour to enter into a licence. So yeah, endeavour to, so go back to the word enter. So just put endeavour to. Yep, to enter into a licence effective 1 September 2022. Mr. C, I might just get your counsel on that, because I have, we've got a regulation here to comply with.
Thanks, Mayor. The effective 1 September will have to go after the word occupy, because it'll be a licence effective 1.
Yes, a licence to occupy effective 1 September. So we just cut and paste that across. Thank you, Mr. CEO. Thanks, Bree. Okay. Yeah, just effective there. Thanks, Bree. Yep. And you nodded on that one? That'd be lovely. Thank you, Bree. Okay. Councillor Duff, are you comfortable with that?
Yes, Mr Mayor.
Are you prepared to move that?
Yes, Mr Mayor.
Okay, we'll take it as moved. Do we have a seconder for the motion as presented? Councillor Potter. Speakers? Councillor Jones first.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Just in regards to this, if you read through that financial and resource implications, there's some worrying factors there. It's they want to take it on for 3 years, but they want technical advice and funding to design and construct a car park, including entrances, technical advice on the design and construction of playground equipment, and guidance of the ongoing operational costs. And the HPA have outlined other projects that the group consider has community support, with the expectation that council is to deliver at its cost. Washdown Bay, walkway, walking track from the recreation reserve to railway tunnels, bus stop adjacent to Wandai Proston Road. Significant expenditure and budget implications. Now, I know that they only want to take on a licence to occupy for 3 years, but I think that's their expectations in those 3 years, that that's some of their, maybe what they're wishing to have delivered. So just want to bring that to the attention. I'm not against the Highsville Progress Association taking on the licence to occupy, but I do have concerns with their expectations in that financial and resource implications. Whether or not we can put something in there that I don't know how we do it. I'm open for suggestions, but that is a concern to me going forward, that how that happens or what their expectations are around those issues. Happy for comments.
I think your observation there, Councillor, certainly goes to item 2 in terms of giving guidance to the CEO as to what terms and conditions would be are considered reasonably satisfactory to council. So I think it's important we did flesh this out. Manager, your response, thoughts in relation to that?
Certainly. There's a number of items there that will need a lot of technical assistance and support to get these these items right for the community and the safety of the community. However, what the intent is to offer a licence to occupy so they can start the first part of their works, which is really just clearing the site, some mowing, and hopefully they're really keen to apply for a grant to put some bollards up to secure the site so people cannot drive willy-nilly over the entire site. So they have got some ideas in the short term of just getting the site going, and they can do that quite nicely under a licence to occupy. However, some of the other items that they're wanting to construct down the road over the next probably maybe even longer than 3 years, it could take up to 5 years, those items would need to come back to council for consideration. And that's the way that we would write that into the licence to occupy, is that they come back and ask for consent, and you consider each of those items going forward, rather than sign off on all of these items at once in the licence. But certainly, you know, like all other community organisations, you know, they are trying to get going and establish this area. It was overgrown and full of weeds, and they've really got on top of that so far. So, yeah, and really, I suppose the other issue, they do not have a lot of money in the bank. They're only a newish sort of group, so financial sustainability or capability is limited at the moment. But I think once they get some grants going, they would be able to progress with these works.
Thank you, Manager. Councillor Duff.
Through you, Mr Mayor, I hear Councillor Jones's concerns, but these projects that you've listed here, Manager Leanne, they're projects that are not related to that actual site. They're just projects that the Highsville community would like to see happen further down the track. They, you know, if budgets and council considers them the walking track from the recreation reserve, I don't even think that they're relevant to this particular project. They're just what the community would like to see separate happening in Highsville.
Thanks, Manager, for bringing those forward. They'll be items, obviously, that would need to be considered as part of the development of the community plan for Highsville, I'd imagine. Yeah. Thanks, General Manager. Manager, anything further to add there? Thank you.
Yeah, I suppose the two that were identified was the technical advice and funding to design and construct a car park. So that is definitely a real cost. Like, to design and construct a car park is quite substantial cost. And technical advice and guidance on playground equipment. So we can give advice, but again, construction of any of that equipment is going to need to be funded from somewhere. So that's where we do suspect that will need grant funding to actually do those designs and constructions.
Thank you, General Manager. Councillor Jones.
Yeah, just quickly. So that means, as you just said, that anything like that with the car park or whatever will have to be brought back to council for future budgetary discussions and all that. Yeah, happy with that.
Okay. Councillor Shoemaker.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm certainly supportive of this one. I know I was lucky enough to meet with the association back early in our term. I think it's wonderful that we've progressed this with the licence to occupy. I think it's a great example. Certainly admire the spirit and the enthusiasm of the Highsville Progress Association, and it's a great example of how council can work with community groups like these to better our towns and villages. So fully supportive. I'd like to thank the staff for the work they've done in preparing the lease. I know things like this get quite complicated, as we've learned over time, with different tenure issues and the like, many different stakeholders involved. But I think this is a great step forward, and wish the Highsville Progress Association all the very best with their projects moving forward.
Okay. Anything further? Councillor Duff? No? We'll go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Okay. 10.8, expiry of energy contracts. Boondooma of Jockey Peterson Dams. Now, that is at page 100. Recommendation there is that the committee recommend to council that pursuant to section 235A of the Local Government Regulation 2012, South Bennett Regional Council exercise an extension to the current management contracts for Boondooma and Majelki Peterson Dams for a period of 12 months, whereby council resolves it is satisfied that there is only one supplier who is reasonably available to manage the dams at this transition stage of management. Do we have a mover? Councillor Duff, seconded Councillor Potter. Speakers? No? We'll go straight to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 10.9, Parks and Gardens Botanical Advisory Committee. That is at 102, whereby it is recommended to the committee that nominations for membership of the Botanical Advisory Committee be called in June 2022. Do we have a mover? Councillor Duff, seconded Councillor Potter. Speakers? Councillor Duff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to see, just with the membership, that we actually extend it to all the councillors rather than just having the councillor for Parks and Gardens and the chairperson as the mayor, that we open it up to all councillors, because I think with your new rules that you've put in around you're inviting everyone to every meeting, that I think in the interest of leadership and also teamwork, that we need to have some opportunity for all the councillors to be part of this Botanical Advisory Committee.
Right. Further speakers, responses? Councillor Jones.
Yeah, that's a good point, Mr. Mayor. Look, as far as the discussion that Councillor Duff's, I'm fine with you being the chairperson. I'm fine with the councillor that's the portfolio holder, and if we have an opportunity to go and we wish to go, with this new process, and we need to have a discussion about this. This is not the time or the place, but we do need. I won't be attending all these meetings, but I appreciate what Councillor Duff is trying to say. We've all got other duties and that keep calling us out and all that sort of stuff, but I appreciate what she's trying to say. But I'm happy for the proposal, what's there, with the option, if the councillors want to go, they can sit there as an observer and whatever else and be a part of it, if that's their choice. But I'm happy with what's proposed right here in front of us with the draft copy.
Yeah, Councillor Shoemaker.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I tend to agree. I think it's a wonderful committee. I think the spirit and the idea of this committee is excellent. I'm really excited about the outcomes that will be drawn from this. I do just know all of our calendars are full, and we're struggling to put workshops, and to be honest, the really important meetings that we need to attend, must be prioritised in our calendars. So I think I like the idea of, with any advisory committee, that any councillor can come as an observer, and certainly, the idea of these committee meetings is that all of the information is fed back through the council chamber and recommendations are fed back through the council chamber. So I feel like we've got good oversight as a team around some of the recommendations that will be made and put forward through these committees. And I think it's a much better process to have a chair and to have the portfolio councillor involved, and then to follow that process where the information comes back to the council chamber, or we can attend when there are items of interest that are discussed. So I'm really excited about this terms of reference and the committee, and happy to support it as it stands.
Any further speakers? No, go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 10.10, Draft Concept Plan, Lions Park, Kingaroy, which is at 105, and whereby it's recommended, the committee recommend to council that the Draft Concept Plan, Lions Park upgrade, funded through the Queensland Government Works for Queensland, round 4, be received and noted. Do we have a mover? Councillor Potter, seconded Councillor Jones. Speakers, Councillor Potter. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. When you look at this concept plan, they have done an amazing job. I think there was just one thing I questioned during that conversation that I did bring up with them with regards to wheelchair access to the play area, because at this stage there was no wheelchair access to the play area, but they have said that they will put that across from the park area. So that's going to be a slight change in that plan. But, if you look at it, they've got the play-themed, wheelchair accessible roundabout. So it's just, the ideas behind this is wonderful. And to have the pin-up seats and everything like that, they've done a really good job.
Thank you, Councillor. Further speakers? Councillor Shoemaker.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it'll be a wonderful way to finish out the park and the project. I personally would have loved to have seen a tractor go in this park, but I'm okay with the jungle gym as it stands. I like the moulded hard plastic peanut-shaped seats. I think that's really cool. I guess Is that something that we procure, or is that something that we build and create? Wasn't aware that those sorts of things were available, is probably a question. Yeah, procure them. Noted. Yes, it's a tricky thing, I think. And just with the playground equipment that we've suggested here, I just wanted to confirm. So we've got the concept plan here. This is all new playground equipment that's going in. Yes. And oh, sorry. Yes. Yes. So that's my question. Is it all new equipment that's being put into place? And I guess my other question was just around softball options.
Yep.
Thank you, Manager.
Through the
Thanks,
chair.
Manager.
So, councillors, with the concept plan, the scope of works and the money we've got would only consist of upgrading the amenities block and probably the path at the moment. So, but the beauty with the concept plan is that we can now proceed to do those other elements when the money becomes available, and that would consist of, mind you, go back one step, I'm going to go out to consult with the community on this plan, and we might get feedback on that plan that we might alter the elements of the playground and the softball. So we just want to talk to the community and go, what are you really looking for? Because this is what it is. And the softball would be normally just your full softball, and there might be elements similar to what we've done. I think it was Butter Factory Park, where we've done elements of softball filled in with soft material. So you've got softball and a configuration of loose material, which is a loose rubberised material. So it's cheaper because the softball is quite expensive, but you get the same benefit. Does that make sense? And we'll populate those items of furniture based on community consultation and general feedback.
Yeah, thank you for the confirmation. And then once you've gone through that process, will you bring sort of a scope and a budget back to council for consideration to funding? Yes.
Okay, further speakers? No, we'll go to the vote. Those in favour? Carry unanimously. Thank you all. 10.11, Fishing Infrastructure Grant, extend BP Dam boat ramp. Now, this is 109. It was laid on the table, so the first recommendation, Mr. CEO, is that the committee, that the matter be lifted from the table, be a procedural motion. Yes, do we have a mover? Councillor Duff, and Councillor Potter has seconded that procedural motion. Bree? Okay, so we'll go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. So the matter is now out for discussion. And we have the report there from the officers. General Manager O'May, we might let you lead us through this. Thank you very much.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, so this is a little bit of a tricky one in that to discuss it again, we had to lift it off the table. But we had organised a catch up with the BP fish stocking group in conjunction with our primary producer event that was to be held at BP Dams because they were catering for it. That event got cancelled, so that discussions never took place. So we actually haven't had the opportunity to catch up with the BP fish stocking group yet. So the idea was, so we will, that event is still being rescheduled, which will hopefully be sort of in that early to mid-June, I'm expecting. So we were going to catch up with the group then again. So we really haven't got an update for discussion for council. So whether it's laid back on the table or whether there's...
Thanks very much, General Manager. I think so where we're at here, councillors, we do have a motion that's been moved and seconded by councillors Potter and Henshin previously. That's showed at the bottom of page 109 and across into 110. However, having said that, the officers have identified that consultation with the BP Fish Stocking Group has been unable to occur due to the floods. And it's recommended that the matter lay on the table until a further meeting with the BP Fish Stocking Group can be held. Now, in light of all that, Councillor Duff?
I was just going to move that, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, please proceed.
I'd like to move that the matter lay on the table until such time as the consultation happens with the BP Dam Fish Stocking Group.
Okay, do we have a seconder? Okay, procedural motion. We'll go to the vote. That's Councillor Potter. Sorry, Bree. I was jumping the gun. So moved by Councillor Duff, seconded by Councillor Potter. We'll go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Yes, we've got Councillor Henshin. Carried unanimously. Thank you all. We're up to section 11, which is questions on notice. 11.1 was in relation to dog scalps at 112, where the question was received from myself. Is the $30 per scalp sufficient, or does the budget need to be adjusted? So the response is that the current wild dog scalp payment is actually $35. Gippy's $40, North Bennett's $20, and that through the implementation of the QFPI, July 20, Council would be providing additional incentives to interested landholders that participate. So Council's current scalp payment will then complement these additional incentives. So it's recommended that the response to the question be received and noted. I'll now move that. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Potter. Any speakers? No? Councillor Duff, thank you.
I just wanted to say that I think that I'd just like to see us into the future as a local government association recommendation, like when we're asked to put forward motions, that be one that we try to get consistency across the state on these scalp payments. I just think that's we forget to do that, but I think we just like to make note with this CEO if we could put that forward as a recommendation to the local government association. Thank you.
Yes, duly noted by Mr. CEO. Thank you, Councillor. Further speakers? Go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 11.2, Coronation Park, Bondi, 113. Question on notice was in relation to completion of the work in the current financial or calendar year. The response is as presented, that the project was listed under Works for Queensland with an allocation of $100,000 as a tourist facility upgrade. It involved developing the site to improve access points and driveways, hard stand areas, curbing and drainage, and overland flows from Mackenzie Street cause a significant amount of erosion. Owing to delays in finalising the design, there was insufficient time to complete the project by 30 June 21 and the need to fund other Works for Queensland projects over budget. The Coronation Park project was ceased as part of the review of all W4Q projects, and as part of the June 2021 quarterly review, the funding was reallocated. Because designs were completed, the project is available to proceed once funding exists. However, it is not currently listed in the 10-year Capital Works program. So I'll now move that the response to the question raised be received and noted. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Potter. Speakers? Councillor Jones.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is, this is one item that I was involved in before this term, and I pushed very hard with the infrastructure crew to get this, and I only have not long found out, and I've had discussions around it, but somehow we've got to get this back on. I know it's there and the funding is not currently allocated and it's not in our 10-year Capital Works program. I want to get it back on the program because Bondi has been told that we were going to deliver this for a long period of time, and how we do it or whatever, I don't know. This is in the Coronation Park and all that sort of stuff with where the caravans are. Councillor Potter, Councillor Duff in the last term are well aware, and I've been pushing for this, and to see this happen, which I was unaware of, and then, yeah, so I don't know where we progress from here. I know that we have a meeting in the future to discuss allocation of Works for Queensland funding, but I really will be pushing hard to see this funded and back on the agenda well within the 10-year period. I would like to see it completed before the end of this particular term anyway. So that's just my feelings on this. This actually blew me away when I realised this had happened.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. We'll go to Councillor Jones and we'll come back to General Manager May just in terms of process in relation to CapEx budget. Yeah, Councillor Potter, your thoughts?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I have to agree with Councillor Jones. I sort of thought it was in the process of being done, but after speaking to people when we did the community consultation the other Saturday morning in Bondi, and it was actually one of the main complaints that we were informed about. People told me that people drive up there with caravans, they see the driveway and they literally turn around and go elsewhere. So I think it's something, I'm agreeing with Councillor Jones on this, we really need to do something about this and get it back on the program somehow.
So what we might do here is we just want to get, there is a recommendation here, I have moved that, it has been seconded, so we do need to go to the vote on this. And then I think we'll bring Councillor Henson in as well because he's had his hand up. Let's get this put through. So those in favour, carried unanimously. Yep. Okay. What I'm going to suggest now, I'm going to bring Councillor Henson in shortly as well. General Manager O'May. General Manager O'May, $100,000, that was allocated, going back over 12 months. We know that the costs of all this sort of infrastructure work has gone up. There would be an expectation that 100,000 could well have gone to 120, 130 from what I've heard in the chamber in recent weeks. Would there be any impediments or concerns from your perspective, General Manager, to committee recommending to council today that council allocate $130,000 from the 22-23 Works for Queensland cap in the 22-23 Works for Queensland allocation or budget or capital works program towards the Coronation Park camping grounds works as identified in the design? Or should that go through a separate budget meeting? Mr. CEO, could we do that today?
I'll go as the process was as it stands. It would come back for discussion through the capital budget workshops and then through the budget process. But yeah, there's nothing stopping council continuing to put it forward as a project. It'd be a committee recommends, but yeah.
Well, in light of that, and I'll come back to Councillor Henson to speak to this. I'd like to put forward a motion then that the committee recommends to council that South Bennett Regional Council include a funding allocation of $130,000 from the W4Q. Is it round 4, General Manager? Round 4? Round 5? Round 5 allocation. Round 5 allocation for capital works project on Coronation Park camping grounds in accordance with completed designs in the 2022/23 capital budget. Okay. General Manager O'May, did you want to take time to have a look at that? Keen to hear any concerns you might have with that motion before we go to a seconder.
Yeah, through Mr. Mayor. Yeah, just we might just for clarity call it the 2021 to 24 Works for Queensland program. Can't remember if it's around 4
Yes,
or 5,
thank
but
you.
it definitely is a 21 to.
So brief, just before we say from the 2021 to 2024
Works for Queensland.
Works for Queensland program. Yes, please. Sorry, Bree. Works for Queensland program. And then delete round 5 allocation. Okay, so we have the motion as presented. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Henson's gone off the screen, but Councillor Duff, he was there? No?
No, I'm still here.
If waving. So do we have a seconder? We'll get a seconder.
Yeah, no, could I?
Okay, so Councillor Henson has seconded the motion. Okay. Look, all I'll say to this in speaking to the motion is that there certainly was an expectation from the council. Our senior management, I think, did come to council with a need to reallocate the funds because we just couldn't get it done in time by 30 June of the last year's budget. So that's, I think, fairly obvious to all, clear to all. So I'll go to Councillor Henson now and then opportunity for others to speak. Thank you, Councillor Henson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I was waving my hand in the event that I would wonder if you would have contemplated the fact that the $130,000, and we're talking 21 to 24, whether we could take that to 150,000 because we know that increases are 20 to 30% at the moment, and we're talking perhaps another 12 months or further down the track to complete this project. The people of Wandai, and as we read in the you know, the response involving the site improvements, driveways, hard stand areas, curbing and drainage. It's a seriously popular spot for caravans. It's noted that amenities block there is one of the best. The people that stay there compliment it, saying it is one of the best facilities that they use in their stays throughout southeast Queensland and further. And I think with the costings and the way they're going, the 130,000 would be greatly appreciated, of course, and be able to do some work. But I would suspect that in the event of another 12 months or time frame that elapses, that perhaps we should tack another $20,000 onto that to make it 150. I know that sounds a lot, but this has been in the pipeline, and as Councillor Jones explained, for some times prior to our election in this current council. So I think the people of Wandai, with the expectations of the roundabout, and this flows on from that roundabout as well, and it's absolute great facility there, because there's not too many towns in the South Bennett that allows themselves to be able to park there and have a facility that they can walk across through Coronation Drive and use all those facilities in the main street and those shopping centres, be it the pharmacy, the news agency, the post office, the dry cleaners, the supermarket, and walk down the other way to the wonderful B&Bs and the butcher shops, Dan's Diner and the likes down the other side. So I think this is a very important piece of infrastructure that needs some money spent on it, and diligently, and I would just like to see that figure be raised a little to cover ourselves, and Lord knows when we get to that whether it's enough then. But there's some major drainage issues there as well, of course, with where that water comes from and where it goes to, and it has to go somewhere. And in speaking with the locals there, and many that are passionate about that, it certainly is in need of a tidy up there.
Okay, as the mover, I'll change that to 150,000 with, if that's okay, Mr. CEO. Councillor Henson, I think, has clearly indicated he will support that as the seconder. So we'll make that change. Thank you, Councillor Henson. We've both consented to that, agreed to that. So further speakers? Councillor Jones.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I do have a little bit of concern there. Everyone's highlighted it. Knowing that we've got this conversation around the future Works for Queensland expenditure and allocation, and I don't know when that's booked in. I guess it'll have to be sometime around the budgetary discussions or just after, would be a fair comment, Mr. CEO.
Thanks, Pete. It'll be rolled out. We're looking at talking about communities capital program on Friday afternoon. We've started to try and catch up a bit of the space that we're missing. So after the budget committee on Friday, and then so from the communities capital program, it'll roll out. So within the next week or two, well, couple of weeks, certainly by the end of the month, we'll be into this space. The capital programs all have to come back to the workshop, then the committee process.
So would it be fair to say then that we possibly leave it until we have those discussions with Works for Queensland in regards to allocations, and maybe we can get a proper and correct costing on just what we're expecting, because we've got the design completed. Is there a possibility that we could get the costings on that by the time we get to the Works for Queensland allocations, just so that we know how much it's going to be rather than guessing 120, 150, because it wouldn't surprise me to increase over 150 with the works that have got to be done. As Councillor Henson said, there's a fair bit of drainage works there, there's concreting, there's all sorts of... so is there a possibility that by the time we get to that?
Through this, yeah, I was going to say we'd hoped that we've got the budget meeting or budget workshop hooked in for tomorrow afternoon to talk about CapEx for our space, and we were going to flag Works for Queensland discussions tomorrow afternoon. So definitely keen to have those discussions with council. Whether we can get those designs confirmed by tomorrow afternoon, I think might be a tall ask. But yeah, we really were keen to actually start to have this conversation about where Works for Queensland. So on back of our CapEx tomorrow afternoon, we would Friday. Friday. Oh, yeah, Friday. Yeah, sorry, yeah, on Friday afternoon.
Stay with it, brother.
And that's just skip today.
Yeah, so just being aware, I guess 50,000 is a 50% increase, and what we've been operating on is about 30 to 35% across all other major projects. So I guess that possibly would cover it, Mr. Mayor. So if everyone's I'm happy to push on if that's what the chamber decides.
So,
Thank you. Councillor Duff?
I was just suggested maybe if there's a concern about the actual costing, what about if you just put a funding allocation from the 21-24 Works for Queensland, just leave out the amount so we know we're going to fund it, but just then we can have time to find out what it's actually going to cost. This is just a suggestion.
Yeah, I think, well, I mean, we're going to have to make a decision though on the capital budget fairly soon. So we may not be timed to get detailed costings on this before we actually adopt the budget on the 8th of July. That'll be the challenge. And we've got to get some indication through to our finance team, probably I would have thought late this month. So look, I understand the intention, councillors, but I think to ask the staff to get a detailed costing on this in the next couple of weeks could be challenging. We may just have to put a nominal allocation in there and look, if it comes in under or there's a little bit more required, well, that can be reconsidered by council at that time. Councillor Shoemaker.
I just had a question. When we, because there were a number of projects where we had to do this reshuffle because of the demands on the COVID funding being expended by the specific time. So I guess I'm just mindful, there were a number of commitments made where we sort of switched money around with the view that we would be looking at capital and how we may be able to use that to see those outcomes delivered. So I guess in preparation for that workshop, I am keen to see that bigger picture. Like, I know this is a very important project for the Wandi and certainly the South Bennett community. But yeah, I guess I'm a little bit concerned about picking. I understand the challenges in the construction industry at the moment. I'm a bit concerned about, all of those commitments that we'd made and seeing that bigger picture. So I think that will be important. I am supportive of this project. I guess I have some questions around the actual caravan park facility. Is it a nominated free caravan park facility? Those kind of things that I personally would like to understand. I wasn't part of the previous term, so I will support the motion as it stands today, but I do think we do need to take a look at that bigger picture and certainly on the back of some of the conversations we've had, the need to use some of that grant funding to support other needs in our community at the moment too. So yeah, it's a difficult situation, but I do support that we did make this commitment to the Wandi community and we should deliver on it.
Okay, we'll go to the vote. Those in favour? Councillor Hensham, carried unanimously. Thank you all. Now, before we move on to 11.3, just on this matter, councillors, I'd like to put forward another motion, and it's just to bring a report back. So I'm not committing us to anything, but Bree, if you could just type this out for me, please. I'll put forward a motion that a report be brought to the capital to the budget committee meeting in relation to the 22-23 capital budget, giving consideration to estimated costing and project completion issues associated with the installation of appropriate shade structures at Coronation Park, Wandi, and the sealing of the road connecting Haley Street and Mackenzie Street, which is MACK, Wandai, being approximately 400 metres in length. Okay, thank you. So that a report be brought to the Budget Committee meeting in relation to the 22-23 budget, capital budget, giving consideration to estimated costing and project completion issues associated with the installation of appropriate shade structures at Coronation Park, Wandai, and the sealing of the road connecting Haley Street and Mackenzie Street, Wandai, being approximately 400 metres in length. Do we have a mover? Sorry, I'll move that. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Duff, thank you. So I'll just speak to that. So at yesterday's breakfast in Wandai, we had a really good conversation about the success of the recent relay and the upcoming Rain Festival, which just seems to be going from strength to strength. One of the issues that they're having, some of the businesses in Wandai conveyed concern that the festival happens down at McKell Park and that they're feeling, so some of the businesses that are up in Haley Street and up in the main street at Mackenzie Street are feeling as though it's too disconnected from the rest of the community. So they're not actually getting any real economic benefit from these large number of people who are gathering down at the southern end of Wandai. So discussion was had with the group about the possibility of closing off Scott Street, where the railway line had crossed previously, for the running event on the Saturday and the Sunday, and then by completing the sealed section that connects Haley and Mackenzie Streets, it would allow traffic to then be diverted up around the back of the silos, the grain silos, to get access to the main shopping centre of Mackenzie Street. They also talked about the fact that they would need, there isn't sufficient shade in Coronation Park at the moment. So, for example, the barbecues are all open to full sun and there's no shade there. So I guess having thought that through, what this is I suppose to at least get the item into the pool of projects for consideration. Now, again, I'd understand to do detailed costing on this stuff isn't going to be able to happen within a few weeks. We would have to ask, I think, general managers for just an estimate at this stage, and it might be that that estimate and any project completion issues around accessing contractors could then be considered by council at that budget committee meeting. So this is in no way meant to commit council to anything in these projects, just to give council the opportunity to consider them in the 22-23 capital budget deliberations, with some information from the staff as to what the implications of proceeding with this, if council had appetite to do so. Look, yeah, that was pretty well the background to it. But yeah, open up the floor to other speakers. Councillor Jones. Just asking for a report at this stage with some information from the staff. Look, it may not be feasible, it may not be affordable, just wanted to get some information so we can at least consider it. Okay, no further speakers? Okay, well, we'll go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 11.3, question on notice in relation to the Coolabunga sale yards at 114. I'm going to have to move this through fairly quickly, sorry. Look, the recommendation is that the response be received and noted. I'll move that. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Jones, thank you. Any speakers? There's a comprehensive report there from the staff. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Okay, item 11. It's recommended that Council considers the confidential reports listed below on a meeting closed to the public in accordance with Section 254J of the Local Government Regulation 2012, being 12.1 Kingaroy Aerodrome Tender Area 21 under Section 254J-G. 12.2 South Bennett Sporting Shooters Request for Land Shooting Range. Mr. CEO, we've got Councillor Henson here. We can. Yep, so we can throw these into confidential anyway and consider them then, can we? So 12.2, South Bennett Sporting Shooters, Request for Land, Shooting Range, considered confidential under Section 254J-G. 12.3, Management of Black Button Proston Swimming Pools, considered to be confidential under Section 254J-G. Do we have a mover? Councillor Duff, seconded Councillor Potter. Speakers, those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. We'll now close out into confidential. Okay, we're welcome now back into open council. I will now go to item 12.3 on the agenda, which is management of Blackbutt and Proston swimming pools. Where it is recommended that South Bennett Regional Council note the report and that the properties team work with councillors Jones and Duff to continue investigation of alternative options for the 22-23 pool season, with future updates to be presented to council. Do we have a mover? Councillor Potter, seconded Councillor Jones. Any speakers? Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. We'll now ask, thank you, Mr. We'll ask for Councillor Shoemaker to be brought back into the meeting. And we'll go now back to item 12.1, whereby it is recommended that the committee recommend to council that South Bennett Regional Council delegate to the Chief Executive Officer the power to negotiate with Mr. Peter O'Donnell under Section 227 to 28 of the Local Government Regulation 2012 to negotiate and enter into a license to occupy for Area 21 located on Lot 3 on SP 249643 in accordance with the scope and specification of tender number SBRC 21/22-11. Do we have a mover? Councillor Jones, seconded Councillor Potter. Speakers to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. The final item is 12.2. South Bennett Sporting Shooters request for land. I will now move that the matter lay on the table until the General Council meeting on 25 May 2022. Do we have a seconder? It's Councillor Henson. Thank you. Okay, speakers to the vote. Sorry, there's no speakers. To the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Now I'll call the meeting to a close. Thank you all and enjoy the rest of your day.